Team Janners, what's happening? So, I just wanted to do a video today about how I was on Twitter, or X as it's now called, a couple of days ago, and there was quite a famous influencer. I'm not going to say their name, but they're of American descent, and they were saying how they can't understand how people in the UK and America get depressed because we have all these great things. We have housing, clean water, lots of food and an education system. And while I do agree with that statement to a point, yes, living in England and the USA, we are very fortunate. We do have those things, and we do have it a lot easier than a lot of other countries in the world, and I fully respect that. But I do understand why people get depressed, because ever since the 90s, I left school in the mid-90s, and by the time I started working around 1997, house prices had already started to get really, really expensive. They were no longer 3 times your yearly wage. Years ago, like my parents' generation, to buy a house, it was normally 3 times your annual salary, and you could get a mortgage even if you had, like an average job. You could still afford to buy a place. But now that has all totally changed. When it got to 2010 even, house prices got totally out of control. There's going to be generations of people that will never be able to afford their own homes. And quite often now with the cost of living crisis, we've got people working 2 jobs. Both parents have to work if they've got children. They're working 50, 60 hours a week. You can't afford your own home. You're renting a place, and there's nothing wrong with renting. I did it for years, and it in some ways it is good because it's freedom, and if something goes wrong you don't have to fix it, but you also then don't have anything to leave your children, and you'll never own the property, so whatever equity is in it will never be yours, even though you've kind of technically paid the mortgage on it for the whole time you've lived there. So I do understand why people get fed up, because you're working your arse off, you're working 50, 60 hours a week, and for what? You can't afford your own home. You're not spending as much time with your children. A lot of people can't afford to go on holiday now. The weather in the UK is depressing most of the year. We might have a few nice weeks in the summer, but that's very few and far between. And you've just got to look around you at the amount of homeless people on the streets. When I was a child, you never ever saw anyone on the street. That it just didn't happen. It's very, very rare. And now you can literally walk outside your front door, you'll see loads of people, and it's wrong. There's no reason in this day and age, with all the money in the world, why people should be living like that. And I just think our government have totally failed us. They've failed the people of Britain, because they've made housing so expensive. If you want a operation on the NHS, you've got to wait twice as long than what you did a few years ago, and I think in the next probably 5 to 10 years the NHS is going to be privatised. They're already making steps to do it now, so then that's going to be another expense we'll have to pay out for. We'll have to all get medical insurance like they do in America, and that's going to drive more people into poverty, and more people will get sick and not be able to get treatment. And I just think the way the government have run this country the last few years, it's terrible, because working class people just do not get a chance anymore, and unless you're super rich, you're not going to have a good life. And I totally get people's desperation. They just think, what's the point? What's the point in working so hard when you have very little to show for it at the end of the day? So things really need to change in this country, because it's heartbreaking when you see people that working so hard, and for what? You've got nothing to leave your children. You can't afford your own home. You can't even afford to take your kids away, and so I really don't know. It's frightening to see what the state of this country is going to be in 5 10 years time. There's going to be more people living in poverty. It's the cost of living, the way of living is going to be worse. There's going to be more homeless people. And you just got to look at the cost of living crisis we recently had. Petrol went through the roof, and cost of food doubled, and it's crazy. It's just they're pushing and pushing working class and poor people into the grounds, to the point where everyone's just going to end up having breakdowns and not even going to be able to afford the basic things like being able to eat or put your heating on. Excuse me. You had pensioners recently had to choose between eating and putting the heating on, and it's disgusting. We're meant to be one of the richest countries in the world. Why is this happening? So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of, it's a scary times ahead, and I just really don't know what the future holds for a lot of people. But my only advice would be, save as much money as you can. Always be prepared for a rainy day, and you just got to keep grinding, keep moving forward, and just do everything you can to try and save as much. That's all you can do, I think.